as you can see, we have a ton of expertise and talent here on our panel today, so maybe we might as well get started. And we'll go in order. Lilia, if you don't mind, the entire conference today is centered about on actionable advice. So what advice would you give a small business or entrepreneur in their beginning efforts of marketing?
Well, for one, I think it's really important to do what it takes to do your homework when it comes to understanding who your audience really is and where it's actually best to find them. So I think a lot of times we have newer companies or companies that aren't really experienced with marketing come in and they're spending a lot of money on tons of social media ads and digital this and that, but they don't really know how to target their audience because they don't really know who their audience is. And so I'd say that's something you really want to do your homework and narrow down who your focus is so that when you're spending marketing dollars, you're spending it wisely and you're going to get the biggest return on your investment possible. But something else that we find at our agency critically important when we're starting a relationship with a new client, we always ask them, you got to tell us what is it that you actually believe. As a company, as an organization, as an entrepreneur, what does your business stand for? What makes you different than everyone else in the world? Why should anyone care? What's your cause? What's your purpose? And a lot of people have a very good understanding of what it is they make or do or how they do it. But when you come to that question of why, it's very tricky because it really takes some deep thinking and soul searching. But if you can get to the heart of that, you're going to have the beginnings of the foundation of a great brand strategy, and that's going to direct who you message to, how you message to them, and you're going to be a lot more. Your connection with your audience is going to be much deeper. They really, audiences, whether they know it or not, really care about why you're doing something more than what it is that you're doing or how you're doing it. They want a reason to follow you and fall in love with you and believe in you. So I want to say, to that point, watch a TED Talk by Simon Sinek. Many of you have probably already seen it before. It's one of the top 3 watched TED Talks in all time. It's from about 2004 or 5. It will be hugely inspiring to you regarding this topic. So Simon Sinek, and it's called Start With Why.
He also published a book on this one.
Yes, he did. He also has a book.
Very good, and thank you. So Lilia mentioned spending your advertising dollars wisely. Great. Next one is for you. What should a marketing budget be for a startup, or those of you already running a business, for an established business?
Okay, well, good morning and honored to be here. I started in business on my own in 1998. I was 24 years old, and I had worked for an advertising company, an established company, for 1 year, and then they downsized and I was out. And I did have some relationships, some clients, people I was doing some work for, a little printing, a little here and there, not much internet at the time. And so I kind of really had to make it on my own, stand on my own. I actually tried to get a job at a lot of places. I applied everywhere. And it just was not the time. It was a good fit. So in starting my own company, you have to put out a strategy pretty quickly on how you're going to get business and get customers. The textbook rule is 3% of your total budget should be set aside for marketing. That could vary, especially when you're starting up and you're in a highly competitive industry. If you're going to sell burgers, you might want to bump that up some. You know what I'm saying? Highly competitive could mean a lot of other businesses are doing it. Or it could mean that there are a few people in your city or market that just kind of have all of the business, right? All the market share is taken up by 2 or 3 big companies. So you're going to have to crank that up a notch. And you need to be realistic about it, because the same way you're going to spend on acquiring your goods, your cost of goods sold, the same way you're going to look at utilities and all that, you have to look at marketing just like a utility. And you set aside that budget every single month. So when you start up, it could be 3 to 5%, maybe more, but I think you can also be resourceful and in-kind contribution, whether it's time that you put in or attending events, a networking strategy, which maybe we could talk about something like that later. My business was built highly on a networking strategy, so that the 3% marketing budget was translated partial into money and an investment in how I'm going to present myself. And then secondly is identifying who your audience is and making sure that you matter to them immediately right off the bat with time, that you get out in front of them and let them know what's important to them, not what's important to you. So once you're at 3 to 5% and you get started for a year or two, another general rule is that you might go into what's called maintenance mode. Okay, and you might be able to roll back your initial push on your budget. You might be in maintenance mode at 3%, or you might be down at at 2. If you're a startup and and you're the only person in your company, 5% may not be enough. It may be 15% or something, just depending on what that is. But the point is that once you start marketing as a monthly expenditure and you create a chunk of resources that you can allocate, then you can get with somebody who knows what they're doing, and then they can start to allocate those funds, and they know that it's coming every month because you plan for it. And then you got to hit your marks. You got to raise enough revenue to keep that marketing going, because it's a vicious or virtuous cycle depending on how you want to look at it. So I would say 3 to 5% to start. It's a little bit more if you're just a real small enterprise, and then about a year or two later, you might be able to go into maintenance mode at 2 to 3%. These are just general figures. I have no idea what your business is. It's going to depend, but that's a general rule.
Very good. Thank you. And I'd love to explore later on what is it that you want to spend that money on. Meanwhile, let's talk about some of the concepts in advertising. And Pearl, what's OTT advertising, and why should businesses consider it?
Well, you just mentioned I had 37 years of advertising experience. I started when I was 3, by the way. In that time, I've seen so many changes. It used to be that newspaper and TV dominated the advertising, billboards dominated the area. But now we're going into digital. So Julia explained to you about you need to know who your target is. It used to be you wanted to know their age, where they lived, how many children. Now you can go into their behavior, what they like, what they consume, how they feel about things. You put all of these behaviors together and you can target a video, a TV ad to a specific target that likes. This target has 3 children and they buy lots of toys. And you could target ads to specific targeted audiences. You no longer have to target everybody between the age of 18 and 35. You could target people that are specifically hyper-target. They like this. They like to go out and eat. They like the opera. They like museums. They like to do. You could do that with OTT. Unfortunately, unlike digital, and I'm talking about display or social media, there's very difficult to be able afterwards to see in like Google Analytics or any kind of analytics how many people saw your ad and how they reacted to it. But they're working on it. So pretty soon you'll be able to tell who watched your ad, how many times it was watched, just like TV. But the idea with OTT is it is kind of all the apps, and some of you who have got like smart TV have got apps, have got Sling, have got Roku, have got ABC News, all these apps on your television. They have advertising space, so that's where you're advertising. And the person, your neighbor may be watching the same program, but they're not getting the same ad because your neighbor has, doesn't have children, and you have children, and you're buying different types of products for your home. So that's why OTT also is the fastest growing digital industry right now, because they're learning how to use it or how to test it and how you can get the digital facts afterwards, so you know who's watching, and you could, your hard-earned money, your hard-spent money that your 2%, you was talking about your 5%, you could see whether it's working or not.
Very good.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What does OTT stand for, right?
I've heard several things. For me, it's over the top. And there's There's CTV, connected TV, that's on all the apps that are on your, you know, when you have your mobile or your mobile is a connect TV, or when you have your smart TV, it's got, when you buy it, it's got all these little squares, and it's got YouTube, and it's got, you know, Sling, and it's got Roku. All of those are connect TV, and OTT is the whole thing, because they call it over the top because it really runs across all TVs. It's possible to run it across all TV.
I always thought that over the top meant that it was like a set-top box, but here, what I know. Very good. So thank you, Lilia. If you don't mind, we'll get back to you. You mentioned in your bio that you believe in audience-centric marketing. You think that's the future. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What is the audience-centric marketing?
And this can get a little confusing, so I'll try to keep it
We can't get more confusing.
Yeah,
than
simple
OTT.
and under three. In short, you know, audience-centric marketing is marketing that puts the audience first and the brand second. It's when a brand gives the audience what they want rather than pushing what the brand wants. So just as an example, we like to talk about this in terms of human relationships, because marketing really in many ways is about human relationships between a brand and an audience. If you're meeting somebody for the first time and you guys are starting a conversation, you're getting to know one another, it's annoying when that person does nothing but talk about themselves and even maybe goes so far as to tell you what they think you should do or what they think about you or their opinions about you without actually getting to know you. It's off-putting. And so what audience-centric marketing recognizes is that in today's world, people are dominated by lots and lots of messages and lots of distractions. And it can be anything from the child that's pulling at your sleeve to the TV commercial, to the radio commercial, to the millions of emails that you're getting, and it starts as soon as you get up in the morning. So it's a new way of thinking about reaching an audience. And what it focuses on, rather than being a transactional approach, it's more about building a long-term relationship with an audience. So when you're doing audience-centric marketing, and I'll get to some specific examples in a moment, you're thinking, I want to grow an audience with, let's start with one individual, and I want to keep them with me for years to come. I'm not just focusing on making a sale right now. I want them to see me as the expert in what it is that I provide or what it is that I do. And so therefore, I have to show them that I'm the expert, I'm the trusted voice, or I'm the entertaining fixture in their life. And in doing so, I'm going to drive a long relationship as opposed to just making a sale right now. And if I do it correctly, that long relationship is going to mean repeated sales, repeated transactions. And if I'm doing it correctly, that means that person is going to value me so much and trust me as the expert so much, they're eventually going to start telling their friends and their family and evangelizing my brand for me. So that's how audience-centric market what it is and how it works. It tends to not be, in most cases, interruptive like a lot of traditional mediums are today. So for example, you know, a TV commercial that kind of interrupts what the audience is interested in, the TV show they're wanting to watch, or a radio spot that might be interrupting the music that they want to hear. It tends to not be that way. It also, as I said before, it tends to not be overtly sales pitchy. Again, the idea, the mission is to make sales. I mean, that's what marketing is. I'm not saying you're not trying to achieve sales or growth in business, but it tends to not be overtly so. It's more subtle. And the way it works is by offering content that is either useful, informative, or entertaining to the audience. And in that way, it's valuable to them, so they want it in their life. They don't feel interrupted by it. They're actually looking for you. So let's say you are a company that specializes in making eco-friendly cleaning products. I don't know. So maybe you're creating content in the form of articles or videos that actually talk about eco-friendly ways to clean your home, blah, 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 blah. You're finding way, I can't think of a good example at the moment because I just pulled that one off the top of my head. But I see a lot of it in fashion, for example, where you know, a brand is trying to show a woman how they can make 10 outfits with one shirt. And so they show video content. every single day of how they can reimagine that outfit with that one shirt. And then they go deeper because really right now in fashion, you're wearing one shirt more and more because it's about sustainability and not throwing fashion away. So then they go into topics about, you know, what does it mean to be sustainable? What does it mean they start to provide articles that are more around the idea of conserving the earth and different factors. They know this is an audience that has an interest in saving the planet. So how many different ways can they talk about that subject? And it could be a podcast, it could be a video, it can be articles, just things that are delivered in ways that are interesting and informative and entertaining to that audience and the subject that you know they're interested in. And again, if you know your audience really well, you know what they like, you know what they want to hear from you. And it's probably not buy this, do this. It's probably more along the lines of, well, let's talk about this subject that we're both interested in together. Let's get informed together. Let me show you what I know. And over time, the more you do that, the more you come across as that trusted source, that valuable expert that they can turn to. A company that I feel has done this really, really well, and everybody I work with has heard me bring this up millions of times, Away Luggage. So they're a new luggage company that's, I don't know, it's been on the market now for about 4 or 5 years. Very successful. But the reason they're successful is they didn't come out charging, selling suitcases. They realized, you know, if we want to sell suitcases, we need to inspire people to sell suitcases. So one of the first things they did actually when they set up a flagship shop in New York City was think, okay, if we just have a store full of suitcases, that's gonna be boring. What we need to do, when people come in here, they need to get inspired to travel. So instead of just selling luggage, they also sold anything that might inspire someone to travel. All the things you might need to travel, all the sorts of things you might bring back from your travels. And in doing so, when people walked in, they were thinking, gosh, I wanna go to this place. They were actually booking flights for travel in the store, and then, oh my goodness, now they need luggage too. So that's an experiential adaptation of that. But another one is they pumped out into the world just articles and content about the most inspirational places to travel in the world, and how to get there, and what to do when you're there, and what it looks like, and beautiful pictures, and again, just inspiring folks to travel, so that when they needed to travel, the brand that's top of mind for the luggage that's going to be required is Away. So that's how they got into people's lives without actually selling hardcore. Now eventually, they did go into growth marketing, and they do have a salesy side to their marketing as well. But that's not how it started out. It started out by being brand-led and developing a relationship with an audience they knew was interested in traveling and needed their luggage to do so.
It's very cool. But Lily, if you don't mind, I'll stay with you. You mentioned something very interesting, that the interruptive marketing is kind of lost. So what can our audience, what can small businesses do to use digital marketing to win over new audiences in this new reality?
Yeah, and I want to tread really lightly and carefully on that, but take it seriously, because a lot of times when you say interruptive marketing is dead, that's not true. That would indicate that traditional marketing is out, and that's not true. Traditional marketing still is valuable. It just plays a different role now. It's a complement, or we see it as a complement to this more audience-centric approach. I think when you ask what can audiences do to stay relevant in the digital space, well, what's great about the digital space is that all those examples that I just gave you right now, blogs, articles, podcasts, video content, that all lives beautifully online. So it's a perfect, audience-centric marketing lives almost at its best in the digital space. And you can pump it out in traditional ways. One of the ways that you can disperse it is through social media or through digital placements like Sir Perla's talking about. There are different ways to pump it out, but you can also just do it organically as well. It makes great content online that people will organically be looking for.
Can I
By all means,
interrupt a commercial break? Okay, so she just brought that up, and that's great. So I put in the back of the table there some car scent that you hang them on your, what are they called? Scentsy things?
Air
Okay.
fresheners.
Air fresheners, okay. And I put them back there. It's got my agency website on the back, because we have a lot of content you might be interested in. We've got like a social media calendar you can download, and if you want to, plan your year. But it's exactly what Lilia's talking about. And if you want to pick one up, they're back there. So that's it.
Fresh content?
Yes, fresh content.
That's a great
Get it.
Yeah. I
Okay.
just wanted to say, I have a quote that I really love from Craig Davis, who's the former Chief Creative Officer at J. Walter Thompson. He says, we need to stop interrupting what people are interested in, actually be, as marketers, be what people are interested in. But, there's no better time than today to look for ways to do that, because digital is real and it's big and it's in people's hands, so it's easy to reach them that way.
Very cool. Well, speaking of online and web presence, Ray, next one's to you. How do you set up a web presence to get the best results out of it?
Right. So practically speaking, I think a lot of people skip some steps that I think are very important if you want to be found online. First of all, I think one thing is to decide whether or not you need a website. Chances are really good you're going to need a website, okay? But it's not always necessarily the case. A website, we see it kind of like the mothership to your web presence. And so you have little pods or pockets everywhere else, but that website tends to be a driver, because when you start to try to do marketing or social, search engine optimization and that kind of thing, it really, search engines rely on what your website is doing, whether it's up to date and how recently the information has changed, and how relevant that information on your site is to someone who's doing any kind of searching, which is called inbound marketing, right? So that website is going to be key. You don't really need to go through a lot of computer stuff in order to make a website now. The way our company sees that particular venture is there are ways to build a website that are very accessible and easy for you or someone on your team to edit and keep up to date and manipulate, okay? You don't really have to get bogged down in that. So the website is the first thing. Another thing that people forget to do is register your business with Google My Business registration. That's super important, but as common as in business,
I appreciate it.
generally speaking.
Very relevant, very impactful. Very good. So, well, if you don't mind, the big question is, sometimes people ask, should I advertise, period? I think the answer is yes. Should they advertise on desktop or mobile?
Okay, so let me step back a little bit. So I'm giving advice to somebody who's doing a startup here. I would do just what Ray is saying and start off with your social media. There's 75% of the people that are using digital are using a mobile. Mobile is important. I'm gonna give you a little tip that I learned about mobile that, just love. Okay, in digital media, if you have a competitor and they're having a grand opening, there's gonna be a lot of people there that you would like to advertise to. With a mobile, you could set up a digital campaign that's called geo-targeting. You could send your ads to all those people at that grand opening who are at your competitor, send them your banner ad so they could go back to your website. Ray mentioned, the website. If you don't have a website, you really can't do digital advertising. Your digital advertising takes you back to a website. It doesn't have to be complicated, like he said, but you do need nowadays, your website is your face. So, I'm sorry, I forgot the question, did I answer it?
Yeah.
I got so excited with my.
No, that's all right. Desktop or mobile?
So mobile. Mobile is everybody's got it, it's attached to their arms. I think that most people don't use it as a phone anymore, it's where you get information. You got a GPS, don't turn off your locator, mainly because if you go off the road and somebody has to find you, and you got your locator off, they can't find you because they can't ping you. But if you got the reason I like it is because I could send you location ads. If you're driving my place, by my location, I could send out an ad. Oh, this guy is 2 miles away. And you can, on mobile, you can hit that ad and it shows you a map of where your location is. So you can give people instructions on how to get to your place using mobile advertising. But yes, 25% are using their laptop. And I think that that's a little different. Okay, we do Hispanic and we do advertising in Mexico. In Mexico, it's a little bit different. They've got a lot more laptops over there. But on this side of the border, mobile rules.
Very good. So, know thy customer.
Yeah.
So you mentioned social media. So Ray, maybe I'll jump back to you on social media. When can a business do it themselves, or when do they need to engage with a professional?
Right. Let's see. The people who sell Converse All-Stars are, they sell them in all different colors. They really are big hit with if you're between, 4 years old and, 20-something or 30-something years old. I guarantee you that the board at Converse are not, a bunch of teenage girls, that they're much older. And so the thing is that when you're running a company, sometimes you're not the customer. And so when you're starting a company, you tend to think, I don't like that, so my customers are not gonna like that. And so then your marketing shrinks real quick, and it shrink wraps to fit your ego. And so you don't have that self-awareness. It's like, customer-centric marketing. There's a few questions we always have for every marketing project. Who is this for is the first question. Okay, what's important to them is always the second question. Who is this for, what's important? And then what's the budget and when's it due? Those 4 questions will guide every single marketing project, or should guide every single marketing project you take care of. Okay, so can you tell me that question again one more time?
Sure.
Because I was like,
When social media, when
Yes, that's
can you
right.
do it yourself, or when should you do
okay,
it?
so then when you don't really, when you have your Facebook at your command, and then you start saying, come to my business, Facebook doesn't want your message, and no one else who's gonna be on Facebook wants to hear that message. But you think, they need to hear my message. What I have is revolutionary. I'm gonna change, I'm gonna better their lives. And all you start doing is pounding out, look at how awesome this is. And it's really boring. It's like somebody you barely knows vacation trips. They don't care, they don't wanna hear it from you. So if you need to reach teenage girls, and you're not a teenage girl, then you're gonna have to get a marketing company or a niece who knows what they're doing to create content on social media that can connect with their peeps. Because if you're not your customer, you're not their peeps. You don't connect with them. So you gotta realize, okay, this is something that I might have the time to do, but as soon as I start cranking messages out, I'm gonna cut my brand out. You're not cool, you're not relevant, you're not connecting. Okay, so you need to realize as a small business owner, and it's easier, I could say this, and then a lot of people are like, no, I know what I'm doing. If you know everything about tools and you're in that culture and you're showing up to the events, then yeah, you could probably make some really cool videos and put them out and do that. The only thing is, as a small business owner, is you have to, time is more valuable than money. You can always make more money, you can never get your time back. So you have to realize, even though you have the ability to speak on social media on your own behalf, that time might be better served creating a relationship or a partnership at a high level with a company over here, instead of maintaining, because the dangerous thing about social media is that it might work. And so there's another component we could talk about a little bit later. We like to say in our company, it's only a problem if it works. So guard your time and make sure you budget your time. Because in order to do social media correctly, it's gonna hog a ton of your time. And the rules are always changing. In fact, Zuckerberg just got off yesterday from Congress, and he's probably gonna go back and change the rules again, because privacy is coming up against marketing right now. And so how do you know, as a small business owner, when your head's into invoices, and in your product and all your daily troubles of your business, how the heck are you keeping up with anything having to do with Facebook? For us to be certified to work on Facebook, we gotta get recertified once a year, every year, because it changes, and it changes probably quicker than that. They just don't wanna overdo the certifications on us. So things are moving in social media faster than you think, and just because somebody says you can do this, or you can put out that content, it doesn't mean that you have the bandwidth to do it, the time, and it certainly doesn't mean you have the ability to speak to these people correctly. Because if you're not being entertaining, then you're not gonna be educating, and you're certainly not gonna be inspiring to make the change. If you're not entertaining people, you're out. So if you can't do that effectively, don't even try. Put the social media down and step away. You're gonna shoot yourself.
May I add to that too? Yeah, if you're not entertaining, informative, or
Inspiring.
or inspiring, you're not gonna be, they're not gonna follow you. So it definitely has to be beyond, well, this is what my product looks like, and here's a picture of my business. And
Who cares?
you gotta be thinking about what do they want from you on social media, not what do you want from them. But to add to that, the most successful brands and companies on social media really have an understanding of social media is social. It should be. It's a two-way dialogue, hopefully, if you're doing it right. And so, like he said, if you're going to be the one to do it, you've got to be sure that you also have the time, not just to be posting, but to be constantly responding. It's a huge offense, big no-no, to be on social media as a company and not be responding to the people who are trying to reach out to you on social media. You will get dinged for that. So also another reason to consider having somebody who can, even if it's part-time, can help you manage the relationship with your customer on social media so that you can focus on growing your business and your product or your service and doing whatever you need to do.
You can get an intern, and look, it's really important. You can look at the creative writing departments at colleges, and if they have a hobby for photography or illustration, or they like doing hand-drawn things, these are perfect people to be able to do social media on your behalf. The only thing is you got to create a legal understanding with them, saying, if you're not affiliated with us, I'm going to give you logins and passwords, and if you're not with us anymore, you got to hand them back. You can't hold them hostage, because we've seen that before. Once you get that taken care of, you can get interns and give them college credit for promoting your company and giving them that guidance. Because like Lilia said, even if you know how to speak the language and entertain people in the auto industry, if that's your thing, you don't have the time to do it. Okay, you may not have it. You shouldn't have it. Really, you're going to be better. The best part of leadership is duplicating yourselves and others, but that's also the most challenging part. Try to get interns. That's a low-cost way to do it, and then manage them well. And I think you're on a better start than most people.
The other cool thing about being able to kind of have this back and forth engagement with your audience on social media is that it allows you to get feedback. And it's a great way to hear, what's working about your service or product and what isn't. What improvements do you need to make? What's really successful that you didn't know was? It's a really, again, great opportunity for you to be able to analyze how your product or service is actually working out in the real world if you're having a back and forth dialogue.
And social media is really, before we used to say, I hope my phone starts ringing. I hope maybe emails come in. I hope somebody comes through my door. People aren't going to do that. They're going to DM you. They're going to direct message. And the thing is, it's only a problem if it works. If you put information out there for free on social media because it's low budget and it starts to work, you better be ready to respond to inquiries about your business. Oh, that sounds pretty cool. Where can I get more? And then you let them sit. Why? Because that message came in at 11-something at night. Are you ready to answer that phone call? No, I'm not. Then you might not be ready to do social media. Because what happens is, it's not like you get 0 credit for not answering. You get negative credit. This starts happening. Okay, and then you're going to start blowing yourself up because you thought you were ready to handle social media intake and you weren't.
On the other hand, not trying to make it seem daunting, it is definitely, social media is very rarely a bad idea to do for a business. It is a great way to market. It's a great way to market yourself authentically and grow that relationship and have that dialogue. I think a lot of businesses assume automatically, we've got to be on all platforms, and you don't necessarily. So again, it comes back to what we keep brought up before. Know your audience and know where they are, because depending on who your audience is, you may only need to be on Facebook, or maybe you really just need to concentrate on Instagram instead, or I don't know, maybe it's about business. You have a business audience, and it's better for you to just focus primarily on LinkedIn. So that can help you simplify as well. Also, you really need to think about when you choose your platforms. Make sure you're creating content that is right for those platforms. They're all different. You can't, what works on LinkedIn is not going to be as effective on Facebook and Instagram. You got to think about them individually. So it's a lot to think about. It's very rarely a bad idea to be on social media, but there are things that you have to be ready, as a business owner to commit to. It's a big project. It's a huge and important part of your business and your success. So it's worth doing it right and doing it carefully and thoughtfully. That's
And
all.
there's the analytics at the end,
Mhm.
okay? If you
Super
set up a
helpful.
business Facebook page or Instagram page, you can follow the analytics. You're allowed to view the analytics. I think it takes a while, you know, the certification, they show you how to read those analytics, but you can tell how many times your ad went out, how many people, you know, viewed it, how many people viewed your video all the way to the end, or did they just do 2 seconds worth and then bounce out? You need to know those things because you're investing your hard-earned money in there. And you wanna make sure that what you've got there, people are watching. So there's analytics at the end and they're like, oh my God, the analytics, it's more than you need, but you have to pick what you want to, study and what you want to work with.
This is awesome. Wow, tons of great advice. Thank you so much. We have a little bit of time left, and we wanted to give the audience an opportunity to ask questions, interact. At 11:45, we'll be back in the main ballroom for our keynote. But I hope our panelists will be able to stick around even after the panel to engage with you and provide this great, valuable advice. So we'll open it up if there are any questions.
Just curious, we didn't really touch on email marketing like MailChimp. What are your thoughts on?
E-blast, like e-blast marketing, email marketing, okay. I'm going to tell you that I have had the best success with my clients with email marketing. The generation, the millennials and the baby boomers especially love email marketing. They will open it. I'm getting really great success rates with email marketing. It's a great complement to your digital, to your social, but yes, I highly recommend it. It used to be that email marketing was annoying. I don't know what happened. Maybe it's the millennial market, maybe it's, you know, whatever it is, but it's very successful.
I'd like to add to that. I think Perla's right. I think one of the reasons email marketing is working better now is because generally it's being done differently. It needs to be considered more than just an e-blast. You know, it probably needs to come across more like some kind of a newsletter or an informative piece of information, inspiring, entertaining, or take me to something that is. Again, that's a great non-interruptive way to come into your consumer's life, as long as you are providing them something that's valuable to them. And if you are, they're going to eagerly wait for your emails. I don't know about you, but I think most of us probably sign up for have multiple forms of email content, you know, that we are electing to have in our email boxes, even though we already get slews of email from other individuals that are marketing to us. We want this content because we value it. So if you can be that, you'll be successful.
And it goes back quickly to content.
Yep.
This is all contingent on good content.
Good
So
content.
if you like DSW shoes and you signed up, that means you opted in. That email is gonna come in because you chose it, right? But when you're doing just spam e-blast, that gets filtered. Google does a great job of filtering that out to promotions and you never see it. But if you have good content and it's consistent and people opt in, so really the e-marketing I think is as good as the email list that you have. And if that's based on largely people opting in, it means that people liked what you had on Instagram, or they liked what you had on Facebook, or they like what you have on your website, and you're cranking it out on a regular basis, which is a lot of work. But if you do that, then you're gonna have a good email list, and then you're gonna have keeping customers versus having to always generate new customers, which is very expensive way of running your business.
It's more apt to develop that long-term relationship.
They call it CRM, Customer
Yeah.
Resource Management.
Mhm.
And your MailChimps or your Constant Contacts will do very well at telling you who's opening, what your bounce rate is, and all that stuff. But again, it's time, and if you're willing to put it in, you're gonna see results.
I have one question. So some of the research I've done online and then experientially, when I'm talking to folks, I don't go in between 11:30 and 1. They're hungry, and it just seems like you get less favorable decisions. I send out all my emails. I queue them, put them in drafts, and send them Tuesday or Thursday at 10 a.m. just because that's when I've already cleared up the first queue and then gone to the second queue of emails. Are there any, and just very briefly, you know, one or two bullets from each of you, any best practices on when to post on Instagram if I want to, and I get object goal strategy tactics, it would be to support a goal, but are there any best practices that are just commonly known within your domain that a lot of users make that mistake? You know, if I'm going to post to Instagram, best time 10 o'clock in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, just best practices.
Well, real quick, if you do a Facebook ad campaign, normally it'll get told when are the best times to schedule on that. Even when you Google something, depending on your product or your audience, it really depends on your audience. They'll tell you Tuesdays are really good or Thursdays are good for this. And so just zero in, you can get that answer by Googling it, and then you can just triangulate. This guy said this, they said this said this. I'm gonna pretty much go with a Wednesday morning at 10, based on your business and your audience. That's what I would have to say.
It tends to be a little different for all the different platforms. I can't tell you of an off the top of my head best practice. You really just kind of have to, it changes too. It used to be always post in the morning, never at night, and then at one point it switched, and now it's kind of all over the place. I think that the key really is Google, see what they're telling you now about each platform, but make sure your content is good and it's something that they want to be seeing. Otherwise it's not going to get the eyes that you want.
Generally speaking, I think that I'm talking about Facebook. Usually, unfortunately, work days during work hours seems to be the best time. And I don't, depending on your business, weekends are not usually good. But if you've got a band that plays, Saturday night, of course you want to be on weekends. So but it changes depending on your product.
Yeah.
And Lilia said it, I'm gonna emphasize it. YouTube is its own planet, LinkedIn is its own planet, Facebook is its own planet, Instagram, Snapchat, those are their own planets of rules. It's not okay for you to sit there and look at all these things and say, I'm gonna do this to all of them. I'm gonna make this message for all of them. Instagram doesn't like words, it likes pictures. It has its own audience in the way that it's like organic to its own space, even though you have the same human jumping from here to here. What I want to see out of my Facebook is way different than what I want to see out of my Instagram.
All right, I think we're waving off. This is the official end of our panel. I want to thank our panelists for providing great advice. Round of applause.